Okay, let's start. Thank you for joining today. I will run my second round. So welcome to the talk I'll be delivering today about Playwright testing on Autopilot. Let me start with myself. I'm enjoying software testing last 20 years. And I started as a part-timer working for some banks 20 years ago, and then moved into entrepreneurship. I found my first company 10 years ago here in Prague in Czech Republic, where I'm based for the last 15 years. And then I decided to start new journey just last year. And I'm fully focused on idea of autonomous testing. And I'll be explaining this because when I found the idea, it was not so sexy and not so big buzzword as it is now. Now everybody's working on the idea, and maybe with different names, we are talking about the same, so I'll try to explain it. Apart from these software testing topics, what I'm enjoying in my spare time, it's wine, running, and beach volleyball. So these are my three other hobbies. But that's something what maybe it's not interesting for you to discuss today, and let's focus on the testing. Before I'll go to that area of autonomous testing and go into more details, I'll start with some signals which are coming to the market, or they are actually there already. One is a pretty, I would say, old study. 2 years ago, Gartner says that 1/3 of testing will be eaten up by autonomous testing strategy or approach. And just maybe a year ago, Forrester says that if you introduce your testing bots, you could increase your efficiency or productivity by 20 to 30%. And they are not talking about testing bots, they are talking about IT, like bots in IT in general. So there are some signals on the market, and maybe this was even before this LLM blow up or OpenAI blow up, when now everybody is talking about ChatGPT, and instead of talking about AI, we feel like AI is the chat app by OpenAI. And we could see that there are a lot of other signals, or maybe that's not the signals, but releases that not only OpenAI, but Google has its own tools. Microsoft is trying to somehow recycle the idea of OpenAI, and Amazon is investing a lot into that topics and so on. But I believe this is not about AI only. It's about making automation better. And if I would use some other slide I was using in the past about autonomous testing, this is something that I was trying to explain a couple of months ago to at some conferences, what is the hell we are working on. And if you remember, I don't, because that's pretty old time. We started manual testing in 1979. This is something what I learned from some theoretical publications. Then I was interested when the idea of automation came out, and I found one resource where they said 1985. So it's pretty old idea. And just a couple of years ago, someone started talking about autonomous testing. And I draw this picture, and I'm not sure about that, whether this is next era, or it is just better automation, or what we are really facing now. But the idea of automation is here for a couple of years, and I believe that this is done. We already know how to automate. I know that there are some exceptions, some companies who are still trying to figure out how to introduce automation. But I believe on the market there is a lot of great people, ideas, and tools and knowledge we could learn from, and it's there. But there are some new ideas coming in, and I don't know whether that, as I said, whether it will be better automation or it's just next era. Apart from that discussion whether next era or improve automation, what I also noticed that the stupid questions are popping up again, like with autonomous tools, we could fire all the testers, or we don't need to test at all because autonomous testing will replace it all. And I feel like this is not there, and I even don't know whether we could come into that stage that it will be fully autonomous. We believe that we could come closer to that vision or idea, but this is a big question for me, how it will proceed further. So let me now move from this high-level philosophical thinking into more specific topics. And I decided that I'll take this idea and I'll try to bring it into Playwright, what we could do with Playwright, but the same ideas could be applied in Cypress, Selenium, or any other tool. But I decided I'll take some ideas and bring them to the Playwright. And I hope these prototypes I will share with you might inspire you to improve your testing as well. So maybe first, let me know how much experienced are you with Playwright. I would be interested whether you are using Playwright, or you never heard about it, or you just heard about it and you don't know what's that, what type of tool is it, because then I could maybe adjust. Thanks, Michal or Michael, everyday user. So because my assumption was that I will not start with the basics. I expect that you already know something about it. That's why you are joining. If not, this might be a bit challenging in terms of how the code works, but I will go further with the ideas rather than explaining how Playwright work. So it's test automation tool for web app testing. It's cross-platform, and you can use all the modern browsers. It's developed and supported by Microsoft, and I believe that this year it's the biggest challenger for Cypress. There was a lot of fight last year between, or I don't know whether to say fights, but people keep comparing Selenium and Cypress, and now I feel like this sometimes stupid discussions are going around Cypress versus Playwright. I try to be political correct and avoid these discussions, but I think this year is pretty busy with that discussions. That's it about the introduction to Playwright, and now I will skip to some ideas and details. As I said, I will give you some ideas how to improve test automation productivity in Playwright. And I try to make it nice, so I said it'll be 7 ideas. So let's see what I prepared. These are the 7 ideas, and if this is something you didn't expect, like you expect more high-level talk, it'll be about very specific topics in test automation with Playwright. I will be talking about assertions and interactions. And I believe these ideas could help you improve your efficiency. And if you don't like it, you can leave now or stay with me, and I'll share some more details about these 7 ideas. I was trying to simplify it, and I decided I will split it into two areas. One is the challenge number 1, which are the assertions, as I said, and challenge number 2, which are the interactions. Let's start with that assertion challenge. One of the, I would say, bigger or biggest or big challenging asserts is that when you have, for instance, this type of checkout page where you need to provide your cart details, and then you submit the page, then maybe your script might look like this. You create your checkout page, then you submit payment details by providing some valid card details, and then you expect the thank you for your order is on the page. But what if there is instead of that nice UI with blue and footer and header and logo, just this message? It might be broken and you cannot catch it with the code. So maybe you are missing some assets. Maybe you should assert header, footer, or a return button. So would that be something useful? Would that be something you would introduce? And let me know in the chat how you would deal with this. Would you introduce new test? Would you add some assets into your code? Or what you would do differently to overcome this type of problem? I can see someone unmuted, so if you could mute yourself would be great. If not, I will find that mute all button. Okay, now hopefully it'll be okay. So what would be your, okay, because would use visual UI as a one approach. Sometimes that would be a good idea, not always, but I believe visual UI testing would help. Playwright has an inbuilt feature for that, so that would be one of the things. But apart from that, and actually this is one of the idea on my list, but this might be pretty simple question, but not always introducing more asserts would be the best approach. And sometimes even introducing some more tests would help, but I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know how to deal with that. I would probably add more tests, and also I would try to search for some alternative approaches. And one of, as I said, one of the alternative approaches is the visual testing I will be talking about. But some of the other idea I was thinking about, what about some technical asserts, which are not so functionally focused, but could give us some heads up, some signals about the quality? Would that be the approach? And I was thinking about 3 ideas in that. I call it technical asserts or technical checks. Like, what about checking some status code? And when I was discussing this with my friends, they said, okay, but which status code? Would it be the HTML page or CSS file or images? Then I was thinking, okay, so maybe I could go to the console and check whether there are no some JavaScript errors or some warnings. Maybe that would be something I could introduce to increase coverage, but do not write too many asserts into each and every test. And then I was thinking, okay, but what about introducing some loading time check? Maybe to have some threshold, or maybe not only threshold, but calculate some metric dynamically and check it. And I could see if some page was loaded much quicker than usual, maybe there is some issue, or if it's too slow, maybe there is some issue. So maybe these are the asserts I could introduce globally and could help me to spot some bugs, even without touching the existing test cases. And I'm not saying yes or no, there is no one right answer to that, but these were my ideas. And then I was thinking, okay, but what about building some crawler to go through the page and check all these technical parameters? Because that could bring me, I would introduce more tests, and I would maybe check more parameters easily without node maintenance. So if the application would change, I would still be able to use it. So maybe crawling the page and checking some basic technical parameters could improve and make my coverage higher by doing that. So that was the thing, and I was experimenting with that and I built small crawler. It's about 100 lines of TypeScript code, and I was crawling the page, and I was getting some results. So if you would be interested, I could share the code, but it's very simple. I was checking the status code, and then I set up some threshold of 500 milliseconds to see where are the slow pages. What I found useful, and of course this is demo app, so I knew that there is this bug, so it could easily spot some error. And then I noticed that there are some pages which are, I would say, slow, or I don't know, loading more than half second. I felt like it's too slow. And this is still pretty stupid and hard-coded idea, just 500 milliseconds. But maybe this idea could be developed further, and maybe I could have some dynamic validation of this loading page. And Robin is writing something here, so I will just read it. Cool, that would be also nice. That's basically the idea I was thinking about, to bring some technical checks, which are, it's the magic, that's the autonomous approach. We don't spend too much time on it, and we are getting some value. And of course, it wouldn't work everywhere, but there are some opportunities where we could introduce these type of asserts and improve our coverage by not generating too much code. So another one, apart from these technical ones, I was thinking, okay, so what about visual testing? And if you probably know about visual testing because I spot some comments in the chat. But for those who, last 18 months, I delivered more than 200 demos of our product. And I was finding out that there are still some people don't know about visual testing. So let me, and sorry for those who know, why this might be a good idea and why not. So I will try to explain the idea of visual testing, to explain why this is a good idea, and also tell you why you should consider not using it. So visual testing, I have 3 whys. One is that sometimes we are fully focused on test automation. We are brilliant in test automation. We have our regression set, which could run quickly. It's not flaky. We run it a couple of days. We release it into production a couple of times a day. But what might happen, that the page could, the better you are with test automation, the higher is the risk that some visual testing or visual bug escape into production. And you could, of course, mitigate this by collecting the screenshots and checking the screenshot manually. You could introduce this by running visual checks using Playwright, or you could use third-party tool to do it. But the less you test manually, the more risk is there that these type of bugs escape into production. This looks a bit horrible, an extreme example. In this case, there is pay button on the left and right, but on the right is white button on white background, so you cannot see that. And I have it just for the explanation purposes. Usually it's not so crazy, but sometimes the button might be on 2 right, so you cannot see it at all. But this is typical situation where the visual testing might help, because at a certain point you just take the screenshot and compare it from it with a previous run. Second case, no, manual is king here, and automation is princess. I don't know. I don't know. We could discuss at the end whether the manual testing is better than than automation. I think this is a good topic to discuss over beer rather than here. Anyhow, the second case where this could be useful. Yes, Radek, I agree. Let's discuss that one as well. Another use case might be that you have like pretty long list of mandatory fields. And one of the approaches is that you just write your assert. And in this case, I have 2 types of fields. One is just simple edit box, and second one is some combo box or selector where I need to check whether this field is mandatory. So in order to make it simple, robust, and maintenance easy, I build a page object, and in that page object, I create it to asserts to check it. But if I use the visual testing, then I could remove all the stuff and do the track image or any other command you would use from third-party library or from Playwright to check it. And you could save 75% of the code. And this is kind of sales pitch, sorry for that, but I believe this is the way how we could easily measure it. And this 12 lines of code could be saved, so you don't need to create them and then maintain them. And I believe this could be the right approach. And of course, there are many buts, like I need to set up the screen resolution all the time the same. I need to keep the language mutation the same, and some other preconditions to make this work. But once you follow some principles, this could be stable, because one of the things people complain about is the flakiness. And usually, or not usually, I believe 80% of the flakiness is coming of not following some principles where to apply and how to apply visual testing. Third one might be testing something complex. If you have, for instance, this pie chart, it might be pretty difficult to build the asserts and test it. So maybe if you take a screenshot and then repeat it, then this is how you could do it. So these are 3 whys. And I believe, and I brought a couple of screenshots here, and I really like the Twitter one, because I don't know whether you remember last week, Elon Musk was criticizing Facebook about the failures, but also Twitter could fail. I think every app is fallible. That's why I brought a couple of pictures here that visually we could spot some bugs. Some of the bugs are not so easy to be spot. but sometimes it's obvious with just taking a screenshot and checking whether it's there or not. So I believe visual testing might be valuable. I will move on, and I see that some messages are popping up, so I will follow up on them later to keep the flow and finish on time. So some ideas or some reasons why not to use it, and sometimes this is the list I believe might be longer, or sometimes it's not so strong argument to even consider. But one of the things people complain about is that this will slow down your testing. You need to take a screenshot, then you need to compare it, you need to store it somewhere. Sometimes you also store the comparison picture and so on. Some people complain that this might become flaky, but I'm saying always yes when it's not implemented correctly. And sometimes it's become flaky because you should not use the approach in that case. And that's, as I said, when you run it manually, there is no point to do visual testing because your human testers will spot that type of bugs easily. So there is no too much value. I was trying to make it a bit science, if I could call it in that way. So I draw the chart on the right, where I'm trying to explain that the reasons why this is valuable when you automate. But in short, I already covered that. Still some people are coming, so welcome all the latecomers. I'll move on. So this is the visual testing. And I believe that by introducing visual testing, you could improve your asserts in two ways. One is increase your coverage because you cover something you would not cover writing down all the asserts, like traditional locator asserts. And the second one is that you might boost your coding efficiency by reducing the code, as I explained with the mandatory idea. Maybe sometimes you might save some coding by introducing these visual testing ideas. For those who don't know how it works, I prepared a demo, but this will be, I promise, very short explanation and demonstration how it works. In our case, as I said, we have our own tool. We call it Wopee, Wopee Visual Copilot, or sometimes we call it Assistant, where you could use your test suite. And what I found interesting in our approach, that you don't need to touch your existing testing scenarios. In mid-size and simple project, this is good enough because you just set up that component by running npm install, providing 3 lines of config file, and then you run your test as you would run them without. And we just listen, in quotes, and at the end of each and every test case, we take a screenshot and compare it with the baselines. So we don't need to touch your code. Of course, we found out with the more mature customers that they want to tweak it a bit because they want to take the screenshot of specific components, or they want to have the several checks through the test. But in a basic approach, we are providing you don't need to touch your existing scenario. In that case, it runs simply from the command line, and you would get direct link to the screenshot comparison if there is no baseline or if some comparison is failing. It looks like this. You compare the screenshots. On the left side, you could see first run. There is no baseline, so you need to approve it. And once it's approved, we just compare it against. There is nothing special for those who know it. It's obvious for those who never saw it before. This is how it works. You store all the results, all the history, all the audit logs about who approved what in the platform. You could build it locally or with Playwright on your side. But then it requires a bit more effort to deal with history and also to be able to manage your versioning and managing all the baseline across various environments, branches, versions, releases, and so on. So we're covering this on top of the standard approach, which is provided by Playwright. This is how it looks very quickly. And as I said, it'll be short demo. I just ran the simple test, and then you could see on the right side that in our commander, the UI, you could get the comparison, taking the screenshots from the 3 tests. That's basically it. I could make the big topic out of this, but that's the visual testing. Short advertisement break. We covered this or provide this with Cypress, Playwright, Robot Framework, Selenium, and WebDriver, and we believe this is something that could help you with assertions. And apart from that, we are having something else I will be talking later. But let me now start with second challenge, and this is autonomous interaction. Are you still with me? Are you ready for the second half?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So the second challenge, I was talking about asserts and some ideas. Second challenge, actually, personally for me, this is more exciting. I was really enjoying coding some prototypes around that. So it's autonomous interaction. And first, before I will share some ideas around it, I'll share some pain, some complaints, what people are saying about this interaction challenge, if I could call it, or interaction. People say, I cannot find locators easily. Or people sometimes say, it's pretty hard work to find locators. and keep them or let them running in long run and build it stably. Maybe this is just knowledge issue, but sometimes people complain that they are so busy with testing manually or maintaining existing tests that they have no time for new tests. So it's pretty tedious work. We spend a lot of time on existing tests and we have no time. And you might say, okay, but these guys don't know how to do it properly. They should learn from that. Who knows it? But I found also even some research that someone asked, and I could find a resource, that how much time you spend on maintenance of your test automation scripts. And people replied that for around 40%. Majority of teams who applied some test automation are saying 40% we are spending on maintenance of the tests. And sometimes maybe this is shortcut and extreme simplification. Often it's around locators. Not always, but often it's around locators. Sometimes people complain about application change too often. We cannot keep up with maintenance. And you would probably add your challenges. You might find someone saying that test data are the problem or test environments are a problem and many others. But for me, I was focusing on that interaction challenges or how to make the interaction easier for us. And for that, I basically take something from others. And I don't know, I saw it on LinkedIn, I think. And there was some nice statement that we have a new programming language and it's simple text. And I have two more different inspirations which brought me where I am trying to invite you now. And these are the prototypes I'll share soon. So if text is new programming language, then I was trying to play and program in that text language. And I start with simple AI playground by Vercel, where I set up simple prompt, give me test to automate, test to log into application using Playwright. And I've got some results, and we can judge now whether they are good enough, whether they are quick enough, and so on. And I use two models. If you're interested in this, play with it, sdk.versa.ai. You can change the models. You can test other OpenAI models, meta models, even some other models from other vendors, and search for the best one in terms of quality, speed, cost, stability, and many other parameters. But this was something I started playing with. And you might say, okay, but this is just another story about ChatGPT, and we saw it many times. But this was something which inspired me to develop the idea further. And then I was playing with Copilot, and this thing starts somehow work together because I felt, okay, but I don't want to chat with some chat app. I don't want to write a code. So how I could make this even more clever or intelligent or autonomous or whatever sexy name we give it to that. So let me show you the GitHub Copilot. You know it, I believe. But if you write your BDD scenarios, another controversial topic, I imagine that you are writing some test to test login. And you are getting some suggestion in this gray, what you could write down. So this was another signal like, okay, but if this is something, what is the state of the art, how we could push it further, why we need this, why we need to write the code, even it's speeding up, and Microsoft claims that this saves you half of the time to deliver that. Of course, you need to still monitor it, but how we could push this even further, how we could combine these ideas. And then I brought two my ideas, but they are built on top of these. And one was, maybe I could fill the forms of any application on the fly. Or maybe I could write something like BDD Copilot and let the low-level code being generated on the fly. So these was the ideas. And I still feel like this is still a bit raw prototype, but this is something that we are working on to inbuilt into our tool. But I believe this could be useful for any other guys working on test automation with Playwright to use it in their tool stack. So let me show you how this could work. As I said, I hope I said that now, not in the previous talk. This is my demo app we will be using for the prototyping. There is sign in button, and then I could fill in some data to log in. In my case, I built my small class I call Wopee Copilot, and I had a couple of methods there. One is action, and one is fill form. In these cases, you could imagine this action as generic click, fill, select, whatever you could imagine in Playwright. But I would like to give, as I said, text as an instruction instead of locator. That was first idea I was playing with. And the second one was, if there is any form, I don't want to tell to my script what should be filled in. And of course, you need to adjust these ideas to your use case. Sometimes it would be stupid to ask your framework to fill in form, for instance, login form, because probably if this would be generated on the fly, it couldn't log in. So you need to provide some data there. But this could be tweaked easily. If you find the idea useful, you could easily tweak it into your use case. So that was the idea I was playing with. And as I said, I prepared two simple functions or methods, which gave me some response, which in JSON, then I parse it, and then I use the standard Playwright commands, or I wouldn't call it commands, methods, to navigate through the app. I have video recorded to show you how it worked, but this is nothing special than submitting the data. And if you watch carefully, this is strange. I didn't provide any credentials, and the script was able to log in. And that's because the form validation checks only one thing, and that's the email address. And I was able to generate on the fly code to pass through that validation. So I was parsing within my functions the HTML of the form, and I've got this result. I did the same experiment with this form. It's a SourceLab demo app. And I run the same code. I just changed the base URL. I've got the same instructions, and look what happened. So it's failing because there is no such a validation. And only thing I provided to my algorithm was the form itself. I'll show you another demo when I was able to pass this login as well. And the reason was that there are details under the form. So if I provide the entire HTML, it would work as well. So basically, I run the same code, changing base URL, and I've got all that locators. Imagine I'm junior test automation engineer, and I have the luxury of writing everything just in simple English. I believe this is beneficial. I don't know whether you like the idea or not. I am committed to work on that further and develop it in a way it will be functional and help us a lot in test automation. How I build it, before I will show you the second demo. It's very simple. And it looks I lost you. Are you still with me?
Yes.
Are you still with me? Yeah, I see so many yes. Okay, so I was frozen with the question. Thank you very much. So that's the magic behind. I just used OpenAI GPT and play with the temperature and model and all the other stuff. And then I test my system under the test. And this is the prompt I used. Of course, I don't know whether this is the last version, because that was one of the challenge to tweak it in a way that I could easily run it. And of course, another challenge was that when you run it once and you run it again, you want to get the same results. So maybe you want to store the instructions and rerun them only if it starts failing. And then you want to see some prompts or some warnings that this was regenerated and all the other ideas behind. But the point here is that I could maybe get rid of all the low-level coding. And whether you like it or not, when I'm talking about these topics with some brilliant test automation engineers, they are so sad about the idea because they love the coding. And now it looks like something else, some tool could generate the code. So I don't know what's the conclusion, but this will improve capabilities of less experienced test automation engineers. And still, we could keep the power of code. So we could still work with the traditional approach, but we could sometimes shortcut and just basically skip that low-level coding and locators. Let me continue with this last idea, and that was the BDD scenario. Whether you hate it or love it, I think BDD is with us and many companies using it. So I am trying to be fair and not judging if someone is using Selenium or Cypress or BDD. That's one of the approach we are using nowadays. And I did very similar experiment. I built another methods, given them then, and I have one more, which is end. And then I run the same experiment, but now instead of providing only HTML form, I provide entire HTML page. When I started doing this maybe 1 year ago, my first experiments, the biggest challenge was that on that time, I didn't have model with big enough context. But now this is not an issue at all. Even GPT 3.5 could handle that. But if you have really robust HTML pages, this might be like on the edge. And there are some approaches I developed. So you can tokenize that into smaller chunks. Then you can still work with HTML, which is robust, and it would work. But basically what it does, it provides me some JSON files, and I can parse them in Cypress, Playwright, even Selenium easily. And that was my second experiment. And now you can see that when you provide the entire, I hope I brought the right video here, but if you provide entire HTML, I should be able to log in. So this is how it works. Same for the our drone show app. I will not show you this one because that would be the same. What we are doing or what we are working on, we would like to bring all these ideas into one single tool where you provide your URL and we will generate all these things for you. That was my dream, that was my vision. And after, I don't know, 18 months of building it, I find out that some people don't like the idea. They want to tweak the test. They want to touch the code. They want to adjust how that tests are generated. So now we are introducing some customization for the test we generate. But basically, this is the way how we think about the idea that once we could generate a lot by not writing too much code by ourselves. It works in a way that we just set up the bot by simple UI, then we generate some map and collect all the data, and then we just reuse the data to rerun the tests. Because in all my prototypes, I'm running that on the fly, which is maybe sexy, but it's not very efficient and not very useful because you want to have consistent results. So if that instructions are generated, you want to store them and then rerun them again, rather than running them on the fly. This improves your speed, and it also improves the stability of the test and also helps you to spot some bugs or changes in your app. So this is what you need to introduce on top of the prototypes. So now it looks like you will need to introduce some backend to collect the data and learn from it to make the automation better, whether it's our solution or someone else will be building it. But that's how I believe will develop the idea. And at the end, you have, I call it Spotify for testers. You have simple favorite set of tests. You play them when you need them, and all is generated. So this is kind of, I would say, fairy tale nowadays, but this is where we are heading. This is what we are building, and I believe this could happen. But we are at the beginning still with that all technologies and everything. But I believe you could do it as well. You could build your tool stack, and that's it. Quick summary. As I said, I was focused on two, I believe, biggest challenges in test automation when we are talking about using Playwright or any tool to automate web apps. Of course, you might complain that, okay, but test design before you test automate, it's important. Yes, it is. Or you could say reporting is important, or testing environments, or test data, whatever. But I was focusing on these two challenges with 7 ideas. And I believe this could help us to make the test automation with Playwright better. Not only with Playwright, but maybe with other tools as well. I believe some technical assertion in some cases could be super useful. The same is valid for visual testing. And apart from that, I believe this autonomous interaction is at its start. I believe this will develop heavily, and a lot of tools will bring this idea into their core features, or there will be some third parties, and I know about some third parties which are working on it and could provide that functionality. Apart from that, I would like to share with you some other ideas, because as I said, focus on Playwright today, but we are working on other ideas, and I think this is great. Playwright is great musician, but we need to build a band to make this testing more efficient or better. So if you are considering or thinking about how you could improve your testing, it's not only about mastering your Playwright or improving your Playwright scripts, but I believe there are some other ideas, and I would like to share with you this list. This is a list I was building a couple of months ago, and I believe these are the ideas which could bring your test automation into more autonomy world. And as I said, that maybe there is no thick edge between automation and autonomous. And if you are interested, on our LinkedIn page, these ideas could be found. I will quickly show you that. If you go into, you could find here under the featured this simple post with all the ideas with some reference to tools or vendors who are working on that ideas. So if you are interested in that, you could explore our LinkedIn profile. I hope and believe you could follow us as well, so we have more people who could support us on the journey. And if you're interested, we are not only talking about that, we are also helping our customers to build these features. In many cases, it's about providing our tool, but in many cases, we also starting up some new projects in that area and introducing these areas via pilot projects or proof of concepts or any other type of deliveries. Sometimes we call it starter packs. So if you're interested about autonomous testing, I believe that's the list. If you would like to discuss more details about other topics or Playwright itself, I'm happy to do so. Here's my email. Now I'm jumping there and back. Here's my email. I'll share into the chat also my LinkedIn profile, so you can we can contact there and discuss there. Here, and you can easily via our website book some call with me and discuss these topics. That's it for today. I hope you found some interesting ideas for you, so you can use them without me or with me. I hope I inspired you. I'm not saying that everything is useful for everyone and everything needs to be changed. I think Playwright itself is a brilliant tool. I really enjoyed coding the prototypes last couple of days. So happy coding with Playwright.